Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to address you at this important symposium and to share my observations and ideas concerning science museums, science centers, theme parks, and similar institutions. Let me first of all share observations regarding the mandates, the functions, the purposes of such institutions, and also the formats. Looking at the mandates and the experiential dimensions that these institutions are applying, then usually exhibitions can be of many types and can reach from just business exhibitions to exhibitions that educate the wider public. Theme centers focus on a certain theme and are meant to inform people about a certain area, like ecological building and construction. Showrooms, road shows, and trade shows are located in the business sector and usually a little bit narrow in terms of the way how the messages, the products, the brands, and so on are communicated. Science museums and science centers are here located on top because they are usually designed to educate the wider public, and there is a tendency that they go from mere exhibition type of presentations that speak to the minds and are for cognitive learning to speaking to all senses and to also allow emotional learning. Then there are theme parks that are more and more designed to actually educate, not only for people to amuse themselves, to spend leisure time, but also to learn about certain things. And of course, then there are the leisure-only amusement parks aside from this. Why am I telling this? The functions of science museums and centers are traditionally to impart of basics of science, like physics, chemistry, biology, earth science, and astronomy, with examples of talking about gravity or water vapor pressure. They also facilitate the comprehension of natural phenomena, like electricity or what is weather. They explain the technological application of scientific findings, like the steam engine or semiconductors. Then they demonstrate the industrial applications of technology, like convenience food or robots. Many of the science centers are explaining the latest research and development and give an outlook on future technologies. Artificial intelligence or warfare from space may serve as examples. More and more, these institutions are raising awareness of the impacts of industrial civilization. And they talk about climate change or diseases of civilization. And where we need to go is to show approaches to solutions and to prepare people for change that needs to happen in order to save the planet. Carbon tax or changing the mobility behavior may serve as examples. So the purposes of science museums and centers, as I see them, are traditionally to keep the national scientific heritage and to talk about and to communicate the history of technology and of industry, and to educate the public in science and technology. But more and more, as I said, these museums and centers provide integrated interactive learning experiences through storytelling, experiments that they offer, experiences, discovery. And on the other side, there are amusements or theme parks that are just for people to spend leisure time and to have fun and to have experiences and adventures. But more and more, these amusement parks are going into the direction of theme parks, and theme parks into the direction of science centers, in that they provide learning opportunities, learning about nature and technology. So I see a convergence zone between the two. It's worlds of experience that are engaging the minds and the senses and combine rational and emotional learning opportunities. when we talk about which science are we meaning when we talk about science museums and science centers, then there are different fields of science, such as humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, formal sciences, and applied sciences. But when I see it correctly, science museums and science centers are basically talking about natural science. And this is only part of science. We need to be aware of this, because when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals and sustainable development, we cannot cut off natural sciences from social sciences and others. And if I may share one observation, many science museums are in fact industrial technology museums, in that they are not so much talking about science, but about technology. Is this all too narrow to address sustainability in the meaning of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations? Let me share some observations regarding the methods, the formats, and attractions that these institutions provide. There is a wide methodological arsenal of science museums and centers. I mean, traditionally, the wall charts, the true-sized exhibits, but also models, interactive exhibits. There are experience stations where you can actually physically and with all the senses experience something. There are labs where you can do experiments. There are educational demonstrations, and many of these institutions provide guided tours, shows, films, virtual reality tours, even dramas, and of course lecture programs with talks. And the technological applications that are being used in science museums, science centers, and theme parks are getting wider and more. Virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, facial and voice recognition. There are robot characters and advanced animatronics, and very innovative show effect and ride system technologies applied. And of course, mobile apps are being provided that deepen, extend, enrich, streamline, and gamify or personalize the theme park experience. And like in many museums, these institutions offer birthday parties, corporate events, team building events, sound and light spectacles, and of course maintain a souvenir shop. All of this, of course, also in order to generate revenues. So let me now come to my observations regarding the architecture, the appearance, and the appeal of these institutions. A lot of different science centers exist in the world, around the world, but let me just give 3 examples. The Cité de Sciences in Paris is one of the larger science museums in the world. And if I could quickly describe the appearance, it's solid, it's technical, has a very mechanical look like many other science center architectures. Yet it's somewhat light and spacey and is transparent and is inviting daylight. One of the newest science centers is Experimenta in Heilbronn in Germany. And you can actually see the impression is dark but shiny. It's edged, yet but playfully stacked. The entrance is dark and not really inviting. And the interior captures daylight, which is of course quite positive. But then the latest development in Germany, the Futurium in Berlin, it's just very, very dark. The shape is resembling a tourmaline crystal, dark glass, concrete, hard and angular. It's somewhat monumentalistic, and any symbol of living nature is missing. The entrance is like a slot below the block for visitors to creep in like an insect. In the inside atmosphere, I have perceived it as gloomy and somber. And my resulting questions are, is this how the makers of modern science museums perceive science and technology, dark and gloomy? Is this the image of the future that the makers of science museums want to convey to children and youth? This is nature, and science decodes nature and science museums present nature? How could architecture express this? Like this? Could this express a rather male concept of science and technology? Do we have a problem here? Do we want people to dread science? Or do we want to acquaint them with science in a positive way? So how do we communicate the SDGs in these science museums and science centers? The issues. The SDGs are many, 17. They are hard to remember. The SDGs are complex. They cover all critical areas of human needs. The SDGs can be communicated theoretically, but this addresses just the human intellect. And this won't spark visitors' readiness to change attitudes and behavior. Therefore, to achieve this, we should probably not focus on sustainable development goal by goal, but focus on a single common concern at a time, and then from there draw the links to the goals. We should combine cognitive with emotional learning and combine explanations with experience. Let me give an example. The common concern is mobility in our town. All of us wish to be mobile for education, for work, for visits, for recreation. Our mobility must meet sustainability goals, but 7 SDGs are affected, not just 1. How do we move from today's unsustainable transport to sustainable mobility? We need to change. We need to reduce the forced mobility by shortening the ways, probably from housing to working areas and so on. We need to shift from private car to ecomobility and promote walking, cycling, public transport. We need to use human-sized vehicles that are laid out for urban speed rather than oversized vehicles. We need to use carbon-neutral technologies and share vehicles and rides. So this is an integrated concept. And what are now the learning paths to communicate this? There is a cognitive learning path via curiosity or interest that brings somebody to visit a museum. They view, they read, they learn. Their awareness is increased. They understand, they appreciate what they have come to understand. And this may motivate them to change their behavior. And the emotional learning path is via fun, to just have fun, then to have experience and to enjoy the experience, then to develop a desire for change. And this also motivates for behavior change. So I am thinking we should combine this, and giving mobility as an example, create a campus for sustainable mobility culture, which combines elements of amusement parks with games, rides, fun, with racing tracks where one can just race or cruise, with parades to present vehicles, elements of trade shows where products are being shown, or showrooms, elements of exhibitions where thematic presentations are being offered, and elements of traditional science museums, science centers for interactive infotainment. So it means the amalgamation of various formats and features into one world of adventure. How could this look like? This is a project we are developing at this moment. It's a campus for sustainable mobility, which has 4 components: an exhibition, a vehicle experience tracks, actions and animation, and an academy for learning. And this deploys the entire arsenal of methods that I have shown above. So the experience park could look like this. People could actually familiarize themselves with all types of human-sized vehicles so that they understand they can move around in the city without using the car. This is how the exhibition could look inside. This is a project where we have made a concept and a business plan, and we are now looking for the best location. Just an example for a new type of converged institution that combines the features of science museums, science centers, and amusement and theme parks. Thank you very much for your attention.